So regarding the economic viability of the PBMR, based on the initial financial models built, there were further questions. Now, just to emphasize, the financial viability of any project is the culmination of a number of assumptions and projections in the financial model. Key assumptions could include things like the cost of construction, the amount of time taken from the beginning of construction to completion, the amount of electricity that's going to be generated, the discount rate, the plant operating life, operating and maintenance costs, fuel costs, the outage rate, and other general issues. Small changes in any of these assumptions can have a marked impact on the financial forecast and the economics of that project. Now, the key assumptions informing Eskom's model for the PBMR were that construction costs would amount to $1,000 per kilowatt, and that the plant would have an operating life of 40 years. They also applied a 6% discount rate, and they put fuel costs at around 0.4 US cents per kilowatt hour. They assumed that the plant would be available 95% of the time. These assumptions were factored into the model. Now, whilst the running costs were not comprehensively disclosed, it was forecast that this would culminate in a total running cost of about $1 US per kilowatt hour. The Eskom assumptions on the PBMR were challenged on a number of fronts. Firstly, the claims made regarding the PBMR posited that the cost of construction per megawatt would be a mere 20% of the most recent British nuclear power plants, mere 20%. The promise of efficiency gains of this magnitude, effectively 80%, appeared highly optimistic. Now, the trend in the construction of nuclear power plants was inclined towards attaining greater economies of scale by constructing larger and higher capacity plants. The plant availability levels of 95% appeared very, very optimistic. They appeared buoyant in light of the fact that Eskom had only achieved a 60% average load factor in the first 16 years of Koeberg's, South Africa's single existing nuclear power plant. Other international plants averaged a 75% load factor. These guys were aiming for 95%, and they put that in the model. Finally, the discount rate of 6% appeared way too low when nuclear power stations in the UK were being modeled at a discount rate of 12 to 15%, and the costs of capital in South Africa are actually higher. So questions were also raised as to how the costing of the PBMR had been compiled, the extent to which supplies had been identified, and the risk of costs exceeding budgets as witnessed in the construction of most nuclear power stations. The financial model, in a nutshell, was highly, highly questionable.